Hello everyone, my name is Katie Guidone, and I'm going to be giving a presentation on emerging adulthood development. So I think it's important to first establish what emerging adulthood is. That might be a new term for some of you. So emerging adulthood is considered the years from 18 to 25 years old. And it's a fairly new concept, and basically it means you reach adulthood when you reach certain marker events, which are important events in a person's life. So things like graduation, getting married, having kids, moving out of your parents' house, these can all be important marker events, and they tend to vary by culture, but most people are considered adults when they reach these events. So there's no set time for adulthood. It really varies person to person, but lately adulthood has been happening later than in past years, and this has to do a lot with college, because college is becoming more of a need these days, and because of the high cost of education, it can often be more difficult for people to move out, so that means they may put marriage and children on hold until they're able to finish their education, so they tend to reach adulthood later than people used to do in the past. But emerging adulthood typically means just 18 to 25 years old, and that tends to be when people start to reach their marker events. In adulthood, physical development is almost finished. So by 18, most people are finished growing, but some people can continue growing until they're about 20 years old. So some people may grow a little bit more. Their height may increase a little bit until they're 20 years old, but most are done by 18 years old. And between ages 18 to 30, your biological systems function at their best. So all of your senses peak in these ages, so you taste things the best, you see things the best you're going to see them, you smell the best, things like that. Your muscle and bone are the healthiest that they're going to be, and your immune system functions the best that it's going to function. So you're least likely to get sick between these ages, if everything is running smoothly, of course. For athletes, they often reach their peak performance between 18 to 30 years old, but that can vary a lot across sports. Some sports, people may reach their peak even later, but typically it's 18 to 30 years old. And to maintain all of your systems past 30 years, it's definitely possible. You really just have to take care of yourself. So these things are kind of common sense, but I will go through them anyway. So obviously exercise, eat healthy, make sure you're getting all your vitamins and minerals, avoid excess alcohol use, and avoid smoking and drug use. So taking care of yourself can help you maintain good functioning of all of your systems, even past 30 years, so when they're past their peak. And in early adulthood, your brain is still continuing to grow. So your brain isn't done growing completely at 18 years old. The prefrontal cortex, which is the front part of your brain, it's responsible for things like organization and planning, controlling your emotions, and things like that. That continues to mature and grow. And cognitive development that happens in early adulthood. So there was a theorist named Jean Piaget, and he came up with a theory of cognitive development, but he believed that adolescence tends to be the stopping point for your logical thinking. He believed that from infancy all the way up to adolescence, you continue to have better logical thinking, your problem-solving skills improve, but then he believed that adolescence, that kind of just stops, and you reach the best logical thinking you're ever going to have. But then there are other theorists who believe that there's something called a post-formal stage of thinking, and this happens for young adults. And in this post-formal stage, your logical thinking increases because you have different experiences. So you have to come up with new ways to solve problems because you have new problems that you face. And in this post-formal stage, you also have the ability to see different solutions for just one problem. So you can kind of see what others might see, even though it's different from what you actually think to be true. So this is called perspective taking, meaning you can see other people's perspectives. So whether or not there's actually a post-formal stage, I think it's true that logical thinking does change in adulthood just because you face new and different problems. you come across things that kids and adolescents don't come across. So you have to come up with new ways to deal with these problems. And since your brain is still growing into early adulthood, you're able to have new ways of logical thinking. There was another theorist called Shy, and he had a theory of cognitive development as well. So Shy did not believe in post-formal thought. He thought that you only sharpen skills that you already have. He didn't believe that you come up with new skills in adulthood. So whether or not that's true, Shy came up with a couple of different stages that you go through, starting in childhood and going all the way through toward the end of your life. So first is the acquisition stage, and he believed that children learn new skills and information even if it's not practical for them. And this is because adults take care of the practical issues. So children can learn things just for fun, and they don't really have to worry about whether or not it's going to be useful for them. And that's because they have adults who are there to make sure that they're learning the practical things that they need to know. So next is the achieving stage, which is the stage that young adults are in, so probably most of you. And this is when young adults set out to achieve goals, and they have to think of the consequences and how to solve the problems that may arise. So a lot of you probably have a lot of goals that you may want to achieve. Maybe get a job, maybe get an internship, maybe other things that you want to do while you're still in college, and you have to think of ways to solve these problems. Maybe you start going on interviews, sending out resumes, things like that. And you also have to think of the consequences, like what happens if you don't get the job you really want. You have to have a backup plan or some other jobs that you have lined up that you can go to if your number one idea doesn't work, things like that. So a lot of you are probably in that achieving stage right now. Next is the responsible stage, and this is when adults have to consider others' needs along with their own when they're solving their problems. So they can no longer think of just themselves. They have to think of how their problem solving is going to affect their kids, their partners, their coworkers, things like that. After that is the executive stage. So adults learn more about relationships and they see others' perspectives. So this tends to happen in a little bit later adulthood when they have children, their kids are a little bit grown up. They learn more about relationships and they're better able to see others' points of view. And after that is the reorganizational stage, and this is older adults, and they tend to be more flexible in problem solving because they have to think about new life issues. So for example, this is when a lot of people may retire and they have to figure out how they're going to save all of their funds and manage them wisely because they're no longer receiving a steady income from work. So they have different problems that come up, so they have to think of solutions for them. And finally, there are the reintegrative stages and the legacy leaving stage. And this is older adults towards the end of their life. They focus on their health and well-being, and that's where a lot of their energy goes, is just keeping themselves well. And they also want to pass something on for future generations. So perhaps that's making sure they have a will set for their family or something like that. And there was another theorist called Perry, and he also had a theory of cognitive development. And he believed that college students go through stages, both intellectually and ethically or morally. So first was position 1, and he called it strict dualism. And in this position, authority is always right, no matter what. And this is a very childlike view, he believed. And a lot of college students don't enter at this phase. It tends to be more for younger children. A lot of college students are in the later positions, but this was his first position. And the next position was multiplicity, pre-legitimate. And this is when people have their first experiences with new ideas and points of view. So if someone went to a very small high school where people shared a lot of the same beliefs and views, they may not have ever really experienced new points of view or new beliefs and ideas. And maybe college is the first time where they're experiencing that because there's a whole bunch of people from all different areas and settings coming together. So this can cause people to question their own beliefs and values and wonder whether they're right or wrong or who's right or wrong. But in this stage, people usually do still believe in authority being right. In position 3 is multiplicity subordinate, which is understanding that there are multiple perspectives and all of them can be right in some way. So this is a step above the previous position. So you now understand that there are a bunch of different perspectives, which you were just beginning to understand in the previous stage, but now you understand that there's not really one right way to believe or think. So everyone can have their own right idea, and you understand that. And position 4 is called late multiplicity. And this is realizing that even authority figures don't always have all the right answers, and authority figures don't always agree on everything. So you may realize that the people that you used to think had all the right answers don't actually have all the right answers, and they may disagree amongst themselves. So that can be a bit confusing in this stage. Position 5 is contextual relativism, and this is when you realize that authority is to be respected, not to be opposed. So this may happen towards the end of your college years. You start to see your professors more as peers and not so much as authority. You may see them as coworkers or colleagues. Maybe you're trying to get a job in research in the university, so someday they may be a colleague or coworker of yours. So you start to see them that way and not so much as a teacher or authority figure. Position 6 is called commitment foreseen. This is when you accept your own beliefs, but you know there's no absolute proof for them. So previously you may have thought that your own beliefs were true, no matter what, but now you might realize that there's no way you could actually prove that what you think is more valuable than what someone else thinks, but you still accept that your belief is yours and you're okay with that. Positions 7, 8, and 9 are commitment and resolve. So this is when you've already accepted your own belief, but you continue reflecting and working on your own commitments. So you're willing to take in new ideas and possibly change your beliefs a little bit based on things you hear. Another theorist was called Kitchener, and he had another theory of cognitive development, and his was about reflective judgment, which is how people work through problems and justify their problem solving. So he came up with stages of reflective judgment, and starting with children, he said that children believe there are right and wrong answers, and authority is usually right, which is similar to the previous stage where children believe that authority are always right. So for children, there's a right and there's a wrong. There's no shades of gray. But as we develop cognitively, we see that things are not always just right and wrong. There can be a couple right answers, and there could be a couple wrong answers, and there can be a couple of answers that aren't right or wrong, they're just kind of there. So this happens when you take into account different points of view, different opinions, you receive evidence from different aspects of your life, and you begin to see that there can be two sides of a story. There can be three, there can be more than that. And this can be based on experiences that you have. And when you're able to see others' points of view, your reflective judgment improves based on your experiences. So next we will talk about adult intimacy and love. So a theorist named Freud, he believed that love is the thing that brings you closest to happiness. Another theorist named Erikson, he believed that intimacy and love help you express and develop your sense of self. And a theorist named Sternberg, he believed that passion, intimacy, and commitment all make up love and all are very important for your well-being. There was a theorist named Bowlby, and he came up with an attachment theory. So his theory was originally for infants' attachment to their caregivers, but this can help explain adult intimacy as well, and how adults are attached to their partners. And early attachments may actually give clues about adult attachments. So if an infant was securely attached to their parent or caregiver, they may be more likely to have secure attachments with their partners later in life. But if they were insecurely attached or didn't have a great relationship with their parents, that may lead to some problems with later adult attachments. But that's not definite, that's not 100% true, it can give clues about later adult attachments. So some of the adult attachment styles are secure, which is what I just mentioned. And in secure adult attachments, you view yourself and others highly. And you can depend on others, but you also can depend on yourself. So you're open to love, you're open to an attachment but you also know that you can depend on yourself for things. Preoccupied attachment means you think highly of others but negatively of yourself. So there's anxiety about being accepted, and there's a fear of rejection. So in the preoccupied attachment style, people don't have a good view of themselves, they don't really have high self-esteem, and they may try to change themselves because they really want to be accepted by this particular person, and they don't want to be rejected, so they may change things about themselves just to be accepted by this person. In avoidant attachment, you can either be the dismissing style, which means you view yourself highly but you view others negatively, and you don't really think you need closeness to others, so you think that you're okay on your own. You don't need to be attached to anyone, which in the previous slide, Freud and Erikson both believed that love and intimacy are very important aspects of human life. And you can also have the fearful avoidant style, which means you have a negative view of both of yourself and of others. And you want a relationship, but you're too fearful to pursue one. Another very important aspect of young adult and later adult life is work. So satisfaction at work is very important. And this occurs when career demands are matched to an individual's personality. So there was a theorist named Holland, and he came up with the theory of personality environment types. And he said that adults usually have a preferred way of dealing with tasks, and this is called their modal personal orientation, or basically their personality. So their personality has to be matched to their job characteristics in order for them to feel satisfied and to be happy with their work and to not dread going to work every day. So for example, if there's a social person, they may want to pursue a social job like teaching, where they get to interact with people and talk and be in front of people every day. And that would probably make them feel good and happy and satisfied with their job. Another theorist named Super came up with the developmental approach, and this explained vocational self-concept, which is based on how you view your characteristics and your life circumstances. So if you see your life as having a lot of limits because of where you come from, or if you see your life as having a lot of opportunities, if you view your family and friends positively or negatively, if you see them as helping or harming your opportunities, things like that can all contribute to your vocational self-concept. And you go through stages from exploring to maintaining your career. So this starts in young adulthood. You begin exploring. Out of college, you may get a job and you may end up not liking it. It's not what you thought it was, so then you may change careers, and eventually, hopefully, you're able to find a career that you enjoy and you begin to maintain and build up and maybe get promoted and things like that. So having a good sense of self gives you better career choices because you know what you like and what you don't like, and you know that maybe this particular job would absolutely not be good for you, but maybe this other job would be great for you because you know what you're like and you know what things you like and dislike. So industry is closely related to work, and it means believing in your ability to master skills to be productive and being satisfied with your work completion. So Erikson was a theorist who was mentioned earlier, and he believed that industry begins with your first work experiences. So this could be actual work, which many, many years ago, a lot of children, they had to work as soon as they were old enough to take care of the family. But this could also be attending school full-time, which is what a lot of children these days do. That's their work, is going to school all day. And Erikson believed that the experiences that people have when they're younger lead to their sense of industry later on. So if they have a good work ethic in school or at work when they're younger, that will lead to good work ethic later in their life and better industry. There was another theorist named Dweck, and she came up with 2 responses to failure. First is mastery orientation, which means you fail, but then you try harder to ensure future success. So you don't give up when you fail. You just keep trying and pushing on. But she also came up with something called the helpless pattern, which means you fail once and then you avoid challenges and you stick with what you know that you're good at so that you don't fail again. And this is also part of industry, because if you avoid all the challenges, you're not mastering any skills, and you might not be satisfied with your work because you're just kind of doing the bare minimum. So a sense of industry is based on how you learn to deal with challenges as a child. So if you're encouraged by your parents and your teachers and your friends to keep going and push on and try harder, you're probably going to do the same thing when you're older and you begin to work full-time. You're going to push through challenges, you're going to keep going. If you're taught to ask for help, you won't be afraid to ask for help later on because you already know how to do that. And there is another concept that's called stereotype threat, and it's basically acting differently because you believe certain stereotypes are already in play and you don't want to be judged for these stereotypes. So an example of that is that there are gender differences among majors that people choose. So a lot of math-based majors are often male-dominated majors. So a lot of females may feel uncomfortable going into a math major, or they may have been taught, whether consciously or not, they may have been taught earlier in their schooling that boys are better at math and girls are better at other things, so they may not even want to pursue a math-related major, even if they like math. And this is due to stereotype threat. The stereotypes are there in play, and they may not want to give in to these stereotypes, or they may not want to feel judged for the stereotype. There's something called generativity, and this basically means legacy leaving when you reach the end of your life. So there are two features of generativity. The first is desire, and this is expressing goals that you have, like caring for the next generation and wanting to be needed. So maybe you really care about the environment, so you want to protect the environment to make sure that future generations have a good environment and a good world to live in and grow up in. Another feature of generativity is called accomplishment, and that's basically achieving the goals that you have and leaving something for future generations. So maybe you planted a bunch of trees through your lifetime. Maybe you planted one tree every single year, and you can feel great knowing that you've provided a bunch of trees and a bunch of oxygen for future generations, and that's a great thing. So generativity can affect how we choose our careers. So the goals that we have for future generations can be set fairly young. You may not even realize you've set them, but if there's something you care about, it's going to affect how you choose your career. And you may want to leave a legacy with the type of work that you do, so you may want to help people, and you choose a career that ensures that you help people. And the final thing that we will discuss is college, which all of you are familiar with because you're here. So attending college after high school is very, very common these days, a lot more so than it used to be in past years. But not everyone attends college. They may not want to, they may not be financially able to, their families may discourage them to because they need help at home, or they may need them to get right to work so that they can start having an income and help the family. But these are called the forgotten half. And it's those who do not attend college, and they go right to work after high school. And these people often face unemployment and lower wages. So some of the jobs that they do are very important. They kind of help our society run smoothly and function well. But they have to face these lower wages, and they may not always be able to find good jobs because they didn't go to college, which is unfortunate because college is excellent, but it's not for everyone, and that's okay. But the people who choose not to go to college should still have opportunities. So there's something called retention, and that means staying in college long enough to graduate. And for minority individuals, there are often lower retention rates, which means they're more likely to drop out of college. And this could be due to a number of things. It could be due to low socioeconomic status, so they just aren't able to fully pay for college. It could be due to feeling unwelcome. So for some minority individuals, they may have come from a high school where they were all of the same race or ethnicity, and they may go to a college where there are a bunch of different races and ethnicities, and they may not feel welcome there. And also there could be less support at home, especially if it is a lower socioeconomic status. the family may want them home to help out, and they may not want them at college. And also with low socioeconomic status, they are less likely to attend college, and this can be due to a couple of different things. They may receive less information in their schools, so they may not have resources for college, or they may not even have resources for jobs after college. They may not be given much information at all. They may just be pushed to graduate and then left on their own. And there's also less ability financially to cover college. So loans and grants can only do so much. There may still be fees that they have to cover that they're unable to cover, which means they wouldn't be able to go to college, which is unfortunate. So going a little bit into a counselor's perspective, I gave a lot of theories in this presentation, and I think theories are great to consider. I think theories help us understand how people develop, but I don't think that they apply to everyone. They don't apply to special circumstances. I think theories should be taken with a grain of salt, but I don't think you should automatically throw someone into an attachment style just because of one or two pieces of information they gave you. So I think theories are important to have in your head, but I don't think that they should be automatically the first thing that you go to. I think it's important to consider each individual person's differences. It's important to consider their other experiences and other information that they tell you as well. It's also important for me to consider my own experiences and to consider my own knowledge that I have aside from theories. And when all of that is included, my knowledge, my experiences, other people's information that they give me aside from just things that make me jump to a theory, so everything included, then I'm able to help people based on all of those different factors. So it's important to not just jump right into theories, because theories are great, but a lot of them are outdated. A lot of them aren't up with current research. So it's important to know theories, of course, but it's important to not just use theories as the only piece of information for a counselor. So that is the end of my Emerging Adulthood presentation, and thank you all so much for watching.